You ever wonder if there's like a hidden logic to why you just click with some people and totally clash with others? Well, today we're diving into this really fascinating and, kind of complex personality theory that claims it has cracked that very code. It's called Socionics, and its roots go all the way back to the work of Carl Jung. All right, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at how Socionics is different from the personality systems you might already know. Then, we'll get into the building blocks, the so-called language of the mind. After that, we'll check out the blueprint for how your mind is wired, see how that predicts your relationships, which is huge, and finally, touch on what it all might mean for your place in society. Okay, let's start with something familiar. Most of us have probably taken a personality test or two online, but Socionics, well, it says there's a whole lot more going on beneath the surface.
So yeah, if you've ever been on the internet, chances are you've bumped into the MBTI, right? The Myers-Briggs. Socionics actually shares a common ancestor with it, Carl Jung, but it's asking a totally different kind of question. And this right here, this is the absolute core of it. Think of it this way. MBTI might tell you that you're an organized person, but Socionics wants to know how your brain is wired to create that organization in the first place. It was developed back in the 70s by a Lithuanian researcher named Aušra Augustinavičiūtė. And our whole focus wasn't on what you do, but on the mental software that's running the show.
So to understand that mental wiring, that software, we first have to learn its language. And according to Socionics, all the information we process from reality can be sorted into 8 fundamental categories. Okay, so these are the 8 information elements. They're basically the building blocks of how we think. Let's take logic, for example. You've got extroverted logic, or T, which is all about external efficiency, making a system work, getting things done. Then you have introverted logic, T, which is about internal consistency, making sure an argument holds up and doesn't have any logical holes. You see that same extroverted/introverted split for ethics, sensing, and intuition. And here's the really important part. It's not about which of these you have, because everyone uses all 8. It's all about the order you prefer to use them in. That's what defines your type.
But just having a list of ingredients doesn't tell you how to bake the cake. So how are these 8 elements actually organized in our heads? Well, Socionics has an answer for that. It's a kind of blueprint for the mind, and it's called Model A.
Model A is really the heart of the whole system. It's a framework that takes those 8 elements and gives each one a specific job to do in your personality. But here's what makes it so different from a lot of other theories. It doesn't just map out what you're good at, it also shows you what you're subconsciously looking for in other people, what stresses you out the most, and even the things you're good at without even thinking about it.
Let's break this down. First up is the ego block. This is your sweet spot, your comfort zone. It's the I know part, what you're confident in. Then there's the super id. This is the I want block. It's your weak spot, but you value it, so you're always looking for other people to help you with it. Next is the super ego, the I must block. This is your biggest source of stress. It's what society tells you you should be good at, and it makes you really self-conscious. And finally, the id. This is the I can part. It's strong, but you don't even think about it. It's just stuff you do automatically, kind of like breathing. Okay, so now that we have this mental blueprint, let's get to what many people find to be the most powerful and honestly the most controversial part of Socionics. It's claimed that it can actually predict how well any 2 personality types are going to get along.
And here you see that predictive power in black and white. The absolute best-case scenario is called duality. This is where your greatest strength, your ego, line up perfectly to support your partner's deepest needs, their super-id, and their strengths do the exact same for you. It's like a perfect psychological yin and yang. But then, you have the other end of the spectrum, conflict. This is where your strongest, most confident function directly pokes and prods at your partner's biggest insecurity. It's just a recipe for constant mutual frustration.
And get this, it's not all just abstract theory. A study looked at 119 married couples and found that a whopping 45% of them were in what Socionics would call that perfect duality relationship. I mean, that really suggests there might be some powerful, unseen force guiding who we connect with, whether we realize it or not. But Socionics doesn't just stop with couples. It takes this whole idea of compatibility and blows it up to the group level, suggesting that each of us has a kind of natural home within society. And as you can imagine, this is where things start to get pretty debatable.
So, the 16 types are grouped into 4 quadras, and each one has its own distinct psychological vibe. First up is the alpha quadra, which is seen as the childhood phase of society. The people here really value new ideas, brainstorming, and just enjoying life's comforts.
It's all about creativity and thinking outside the box.
Next, you have the beta quadra, the ambitious youth. This group gets its energy from big struggles, historical movements, and heroic deeds. They value decisive action, strong leadership, and all the powerful emotions that come with trying to change the world.
Then we move into the gamma quadra, which represents a kind of pragmatic adulthood. Here, the focus totally shifts to things like efficiency, getting results, and making sure you're paid fairly for what you do. These are the skeptical realists who value their independence and want to see tangible success.
And finally, we have the Delta Quadra, which embodies maturity or old age. This group values craftsmanship, stability, and just making everyday life better. Their focus isn't on some future revolution. It's on creating a comfortable, practical, and enjoyable world in the here and now.
But for all this compelling structure, we have to ask the big question, is any of this actually real? Because in the world of mainstream science, socionics runs into a pretty big wall. The most common criticism is, well, pretty blunt. It's often dismissed as a pseudoscience.
The arguments against it really boil down to a few key things. For one, the Russian Academy of Sciences officially labeled it a pseudoscience, putting it in the same category as things like astrology. It also just doesn't have the kind of rigorous empirical studies to back it up, especially outside of its home turf in Eastern Europe. And maybe the biggest issue of all is the very idea that our personality is fixed for life. That's a concept that a lot of modern psychologists would seriously push back on.
And that really brings us to the final lingering question. Socionics presents this incredibly detailed, almost elegant vision of who we are and how we connect. But it leaves you wondering, are our relationships really governed by some hidden code in our minds? Or is the story of who we click with something that we have the power to create for ourselves?